Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes. How's everybody doing today? Welcome, bienvenidos. Well, first of all, I want to thank all for participating in this conversation, in this chat with the mayor. This is very important because from previous experience, most of the times during elections, many voters really don't have a chance to know and hear from or about their candidates and who the candidates are on the ballot. Many times people don't vote. They don't fill up the little bubble, or they just select any one of the names that are and hoping that they voted for the right person. That is why this is very important to make sure that we provide additional information to the voters and to uh, all of those people that we actually make our recommendations to on how to vote, and to encourage and invite everyone to fill out the ballot and mail it in or drop it off at the voting centers. Once again, thank you all for being here. And well, I'm going to try and translate as much as possible because we have multiple audience. Gracias a todos por participar en esta conversación, en este chat con el alcalde. Esto es sumamente importante porque, y basándonos en experiencias anteriores, la mayoría de las veces durante las elecciones, muchos de nosotros los votantes no tienen la oportunidad de conocer ni de escuchar de los candidatos. Muchos votantes y de conocer a los candidatos en su boleta. Con frecuencia, muchos de nosotros no votamos o marcamos la opción correspondiente o simplemente seleccionamos cualquiera de los nombres, dependiendo si nos gusta alguno de los nombres y con la esperanza de haber votado por la persona indicada. Por eso es muy importante asegurarnos de proporcionar información adicional a los votantes y a todas aquellas personas a las que ofrecemos nuestras recomendaciones sobre cómo votar. Asimismo, es esencial alentar e invitar a todos a llenar sus boletas y enviarlas por correo o entregarlas en los centros de votación. Una vez más, gracias a todos por estar aquí. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Jaren. I know Luis it's online and waiting, and we're going to have a couple of other guests. So thank you all for being here this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jose, and thank you for this opportunity to allow me to be here with this chit chat on Facebook. I really appreciate that. I think it's good for the community, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to introduce ourselves on that. Muy amable. Muchas gracias, Jose. Thank you, señor alcalde.
Thank you,
Reverend
Jennifer.
Jose, thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. So let's get this started. We're going to start with, I have some questions for Mr. Velarde. And if you can tell us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, about your family, about your, I don't know, your middle school, high school years, what were they like, your college experience, what can you tell us?
Well, my name is Alberto Velarde, and I'm 63. I mean, I was born in 1963. I'm going to be 63 years old this year. And so I was born in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico. I don't know, a lot of people do not know that. And my parents migrated to this great city of Merced in 1975. Can you believe that? 1975. Like many migrant families, my parents work in the agricultural fields as a young boy. So I work alongside my parents. And so, and at that time, Merced County was big on tomatoes. The industry was so big. So we worked picking up tomatoes, the tomatoes machines. And so it was just the industry, and it was the whole summer pretty much. Back then, Jose, I don't know if you guys were aware of this or not, because you guys are much younger than I am. But back then, we used to start school in September, second week of September, because of, you had to work. And so anyway, so also I'm proud. I'm really proud of being part of the Merced City Schools and Merced High School District. I graduated from Merced High School. I attended Hoover Junior High. If you're from Merced, the city of Merced, I attended Hoover Junior High School in the 7th grade. In my 8th grade year, I went to Rivera Junior High, and back then it was graduation. Now it's promotion. I graduated from Rivera Junior High. I still have my diploma. And then later I graduated from high school in 1982. In high school, I participated in one of the first bilingual educational programs in the San Joaquin Valley. and very unique, one of a kind. And we really had a lot of mentorship, a lot of great teachers, a lot of, it was Missouri High School was a very positive experience. And because of that, I want to go back and become a teacher so I can give back to our community. And so I also I did rest I did participate in wrestling. We have back in the day with the high school was a powerhouse in wrestling. We won the state championship in 1980. I went to the state championship in 1982. And so I have 47 wins and 5 losses. And I was ranked in the top 8 in the state of California for 5 years. So after high school, I attended California State University, Fresno, where I earned my bachelor's degree in physical education and my teaching credential. I earned my master's of science degree a student later at National University. I began my educational career in 1991 at Washington High School District. My first year, I was an instructional aide because I was working on my credentials. So once I earned my credential, I got hired as a PE teacher in social studies. I also coach wrestling and cross country. So in 1998, Jose, I began my administrative career as a principal of Eastern Continuation High School. I now bring more than 35 years of experience in education, including 27 consecutive years that includes being an elementary, middle school, and high school principal. I also have experience as a director of a preschool, independent studies, and adult education. So that's pretty much of my. You want me to translate that for you, Jose? Or you want to translate it or are you going to do that or no?
No, adelante. If you want to share a little bit in Spanish, yes, of course, or Chinese, French.
Ok. Mi nombre es Alberto Velarde y yo tengo 63 años de edad. Yo nací en Culiacán, Sinaloa, México. Mis padres emigraron a esta gran ciudad de Merced en 1975 y ellos trabajaban en el campo agricultor y nosotros, primeramente, el tipo de agricultura y cosechas que era el tomate. Nosotros piscábamos los tomates, trabajábamos en las máquinas de tomate, hasta en la canería de tomate. Todo era tomate. Y en aquellos tiempos la escuela empezaba un poquito más tarde porque la mayoría de la gente trabajaba y especialmente en el campo de agricultor. Nosotros empezamos la escuela hasta septiembre. Yo desde mayo a septiembre trabajaba en el campo con mis padres. En los inviernos nos íbamos a la poda de uvas de las viñas. Yo estoy muy orgulloso que soy producto de aquí de las escuelas de Merced. Yo fui a la escuela Hoover Junior High. Antes era Junior High, ahora dicen Middle School. Y también fui a Rivera Junior High. Y me gradué de la high school en 1982. A mí me tocó mucha suerte porque yo tenía muy buenos maestros que siempre, ellos creían en nosotros. Era el primer programa bilingüe en el Valle de San Joaquín. Ellos nos ayudaron en creer a sí mismo y por eso yo me hice maestro, porque yo quería ser como ellos para ayudar a otros estudiantes. Yo me fui a la Universidad de Fresno, donde yo obtuve mi bachillerato, mi título de educación física y mi credencial para enseñar. Y después me agarré mi maestría de ciencia en administración de escuela en National University. Yo empecé a trabajar en Washington High School District en 1990 y ese año yo empecé como ayudante de maestro porque estaba trabajando mi credencial. Al año que terminé mi credencial empecé a trabajar como maestro de educación física y ciencias sociales y también yo entrenador del equipo de lucha y el equipo de cross country. Yo tuve muy bonita experiencia. Yo era muy buen luchador porque me gustaba no ir al campo, porque era mi excusa en el invierno para no ir al invierno a la poda. Le decía a mi mamá y papá, quiero ir, tengo que ir a entrenar. Pero de todas maneras teníamos buenos equipos en aquellos tiempos. Nosotros ganamos el campeonato estatal en 1980. En aquellos tiempos Merced era un equipo muy fuerte en el estado de California. Yo empecé mi carrera como director de escuela de Eastern Continuation High School en Fresno County, Easton, un pueblito que se llama Easton, en la misma ciudad donde yo era el maestro. Y ahí me empecé mi carrera. Yo tengo más de 35 años en este campo de carrera y tengo 27 años consecutivos sin parar ser administrador, ya sea director de primaria, middle school y high school. Y también tengo, fui director de preschool, in independent studies y luego también escuela adulta. So, eso es más o menos lo para que, si me
Sí.
quieren conocer o si tienen preguntas, pueden preguntarme.
Sí, no, claro, and thank you for sharing that. I think you already covered my other question, which was what motivated you to become an educator, and you already mentioned it. And usted ya comentó sobre la siguiente pregunta que tenía para usted. ¿Qué fue lo que lo motivó para ser un educador? Como mencionó usted, tratar de ayudar a alguien más en la comunidad through education, right? So let me ask you another question. If you can think or choose one, what would you consider it to be your biggest accomplishment in education in your 30 some years in education?
My biggest accomplishment, I think, is when California High School Exit Exam existed. There were a lot of students failing because they could not pass a high school exit exam. They took that away. And let me even do a little bit prior history. Before that, they have what they call the district. It was a test for proficiencies in reading, writing, and math. And then California developed their own. It was California High School Exit Exam. And back then, when I was a principal at the Portal High School, and we had a significant number, about 200 kiddos and seniors. I'm talking about seniors. It's a big program that we help our students. 100% of my kids pass the California High School Exit Exam. When a lot of schools, whether it was the mainstream or alternative education, were failing the California High School Exit Exam, I'm so proud of that because those students believe in themselves. I believe in them, and I believe themselves in developing proactive measures to, from the get-go, identify and strengthen the weaknesses we tackle. We capitalize on their strengths, and then we work on the weaknesses so we can help them be successful. So we got recognized as a school of the year in Stanislaus County because it was so good. I mean, our scores like unbelievable. State test. Then they took that away. The reason they took Casey away because we were failing a lot of students not able to get a high school diploma. But I tell you believe that students can do it. If you have high standards, students will rise to those standards. So that's what I'm very proud of. Always very proud that, you know what, I talked to the parents. We kept them after school, before school, during school. We targeted instruction for them, and they became proficient to pass that test. And it wasn't a district test, it was a state test. So I think that's one of the things I always be proud of my heart, that I was able to help kids to believe in themselves and be successful.
Good, good. And I think you mentioned something very important. Creo que usted mencionó algo muy importante. How we involve parents in their kids' education, because we're used to, in many of our Hispanic or Latino countries, parents see the educators, the teachers, the principals as, they give us their responsibility to us as to educate their kids. And here's a little bit different, and you mentioned parents, and how important is the parent participation in a student's education?
Yeah, we got to do, the key to success in helping our students nowadays is developing a partnership, a good relationship with the parents. I haven't talked to no parents that says, I don't care if you go, he's reading. They care. Sometimes they don't have the know-how. Sometimes they work 2 jobs. Sometimes they're not able to help their kid after school. But one of the things I do connect with them is to make sure that I, or the school, or the teachers, as an administrator, I always mandated my teachers to make the phone call. If a kid is failing, we want to offer an opportunity for parents to come and help in the classroom, or we're going to make suggestions. And so if the parent is not trying, or not for some reason is not able to come to school for whatever reason, I decided to make a home visit with the teacher. Says, hey, you don't have to go alone. You don't have to, because there's some mandates. Back in the days when I was a young man, it was okay to make home visits. In fact, it was required back then, not anymore. So it's optional. But I used to tell the teacher, hey, we got to make sure we talk to the parents so they can help us and support us. So communicating with the parent, developing that relationship and let them know we want to help Alberto. Alberto Velarde right now is reading at the 5th grade and he's an 8th grader. We want to help him. He can do it, but we need your support. And this is what we're going to do. Before school, after school, and can you do this at home for us and make sure that he stays after school so we can help him. So making that commitment, that partnership, and and those parents follow through when they know you care, they're going to support you to be successful. So connecting, developing that relationship with the parent makes a difference.
Okay. And so, here's the big question. I know you've been in education for a long time, and probably the other candidates can probably say very similar things about how long they've been in education. But what makes you different, and why do you want to become the next superintendent for Merced County Office in Education? And what I think here's the big question, especially in the area. What do you think about the special favors that are very common in,
It is just unbelievable. One of the things is being transparent. I mean, I believe in transparency. So what I want to bring is transparency, experience, and clear plan to be focused on student success. We need to focus on student success because sometimes when you become a partner with the political insider or the special interest, that limits you. It's payback. How do I pay you back? I mean, you carry their agenda. My commitment is to the students, families, in schools of Merced County. That is the difference. And bringing real plans to help students. I am promoting specific initiatives, Jose, that will provide real opportunities for all students. The Bridge to College program is not a new concept. Fresno County is doing it. Even the little districts outside Fresno County, the small schools, rural schools, Fireball, Mendota, there's a lot of great people, a lot of great mentors, and they target those kiddos at the 7th grade level. Don't wait for high school. You start in the 7th grade level where you not only get them ready for college, but also you provide mentorship and you provide that dual enrollment program. And by the end of the 4th year in high school, those students not only are ready to go to a university, but they're going to have enough credits to potentially earn an AA degree.
Yes.
And the other option, I tell you, it's going to be a game changer. Students that do not want to go, they want to choose a different pathway. Career technical education. I want to establish a high school apprenticeship academy. An apprenticeship academy where students can earn a certification in auto technology, welding, vocational nursing, and cosmetology. And so those students will be certified, ready to go to work as soon as they finish high school. One of the things I'll say is so sad. I mean, to go to a private school and get your auto technology certification after high school, it's about $45,000.
Yeah.
And so we got to do it now. Why wait for later? And again, I'm going to keep saying this because this is not a new concept. Fresno County is doing it. Outer counties are doing it. We are behind schedule. So let me answer you the question. I do not have any political insiders or special interests that is supporting me. Like I said, my commitment is to the students, families, educators, and school of Merced County.
Okay. I really appreciate that. So one last question. And this morning I was looking at the reports of how many people have sent in their ballots in the county, and I think we're up to 6%. It was 4% just a few days ago or yesterday, and this morning was 6%. I mean, we still have a lot of ballots out there. And I think, and one of the main reasons of why I wanted to do this is to encourage the voters to fill in their ballots. So my question is, what is your message to the voter who's still waiting to mail in their ballots?
Please do it as soon as possible because you are busy no matter what. Take 20, 30 times as your civic responsibility because your voice counts and you have a choice. We need to become proactive in our community by being able to select people who care, who's going to make a difference in our community. And you have the power to do that. It's only in America. We have the privilege to elect our officials via voting for them. So please exercise your rights and your privilege to do that. Please don't forget. It's June the 2nd. You can go in person, but if you have a ballot that you can mail, do it now. We'll drop it at one of the offices that is an official site to drop that ballot.
En un minuto, en español, ¿cuál es su mensaje para el votante que está en casa con su boleta todavía?
Ya les llegaron las boletas para, si están votando por correo, ya les llegaron. Por favor, no se esperen, porque si llegan tarde, entonces no van a contar. Tiene que hacerlo desde ahorita. No se espere hasta la otra semana. Hágalo este fin de semana. Escoja, usted tiene voz, su voto cuenta. Entonces es muy importante que usted vote y elija a alguien que va a hacer algo positivo en nuestra comunidad. Usted tiene el privilegio y tiene el poder para hacer eso. Es lo bonito de nuestra democracia, que nosotros podemos elegir a nuestros líderes en nuestras comunidades. So, por favor, no se les olviden votar. Y si por si acaso no pudieron hacer eso, el 2 de junio puede ir en persona, pero eso hágalo, si tienen la boleta, hágalo desde ahorita, porque se espera más tarde, se hace más difícil y muchas de las veces no lo hace uno.
Ok, muy bien. Gracias, Alberto. Thank you very much for participating, and until next time.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so let's see. Let me bring in our next guest. Muchas gracias. Bienvenida, asambleísta Esmeralda Soria, por participar y para tratar de enviar el mensaje, to try and continue moving the message forward about candidates and how we want nuestros votantes para que entreguen su boleta, porque estamos caminando muy despacio. Bienvenida. Welcome.
Hola, buenas tardes, José. Un gusto estar aquí para platicar y motivar a que todas las personas que tengan el privilegio de votar en estas elecciones, que voten, porque es muy importante, y que no se esperen hasta el último momento o que digan, mi voto no cuenta, porque la realidad que si nos quedamos en casa hay consecuencias, y si votamos podemos ejercer nuestra voz y asegurar que nuestras voces sean representadas en todo nivel del gobierno, desde el condado, la mesa directiva escolar, el superintendente, hasta gobernador y congresistas.
Okay. So, I'm sure you already had plenty of opportunities to visit a lot of different forums and candidate forums throughout the district, but one of the things that I wanted to focus on a little bit is to give the opportunity to our candidates to share a little bit about who they are, where they come from, a little like who you are, not as a candidate, but as a person. ¿Qué nos puedes contar?
¿En Spanish or English?
En los dos, el que se pueda.
Ok, pues voy a empezar en español. Pues como ya saben, mi nombre es Esmeralda Soria y sí soy la asambleísta, pero mi historia es casi la historia de la mayoría de los residentes que viven en el Valle Central. Yo soy hija de padres que vinieron como inmigrantes en los años 70 y vinieron indocumentados y trabajaron en el campo o en la agricultura la mayoría de su vida. Y yo tuve la oportunidad de ir a las mejores universidades públicas gracias al trabajo duro, a las enseñanzas de mis padres, que pusiera educación enfrente, y fui a la Universidad de Berkeley y luego me gradué de la Universidad de Derecho de UC Davis y soy abogada. La meta era de ser abogada de inmigración, porque como para mí ese es un tema muy personal, ya que personalmente he vivido ese tema en mi familia. Cuando mis padres eran indocumentados, luego regularizaron su estatus migratorio durante la amnistía y se hicieron ciudadanos. Y he visto el impacto del tema de inmigración en nuestras familias, y por eso me quería ser abogada. Pero lo que aprendí en ese tiempo de mi educación en la universidad, que era importante también tener líderes que nos pueden ayudar a hacer leyes para ayudar a nuestras comunidades, especialmente en las áreas del Valle Central, que no hemos tenido tantos líderes que se han enfocado en las comunidades que han sido más marginadas, y es lo que yo he hecho desde que me involucré en la política. Yo ya he estado involucrada en la política por 12 años empecé como concejal de la ciudad de Fresno, donde aprendí cómo el gobierno local también puede ayudar a las comunidades. En ese tiempo construimos nuevos parques, construimos nuevas viviendas asequibles para nuestra comunidad, dimos voces a comunidades que usualmente no se sienten que tienen voz y representación. También involucramos a la juventud, hicimos una mesa directiva de la juventud y yo también ayudé a crear más oportunidades de empleo como concejal. Al igual, también estuve bien involucrada con la educación. Fui profesora al nivel colegio comunitario, donde enseñaba ciencia política y estudios chicanos, la historia de la comunidad latina aquí en California y de la comunidad latina en la política. Y eso, todas son esas experiencias que yo pienso que a mí me han dado la ventaja de poder representar a nuestra comunidad, porque he vivido muchas de los pues inigualdades y de los problemas que muchas de las familias están batallando hoy. Y es por eso que yo he continuado mi carrera en el servicio público, porque pienso que es muy importante de tener a alguien que tenga esa experiencia y también que ha demostrado que ha podido arreglar los diferentes problemas. Claro, no voy a poder arreglar todo, pero voy a poder avanzar no solamente pólizas para ayudar a nuestra comunidad, pero también avanzar cosas en el presupuesto, si es al nivel local o al nivel estatal, para ayudar a nuestra comunidad. Y es lo que yo he estado haciendo por los últimos 12 años, ya que me involucré en la política, porque para mí siempre he pensado que si no estamos en la mesa, vamos a estar en el menú. Y como latinos ya representamos casi la mayoría, somos 40% de la población en California, y no es justo que todavía suframos los mismos temas, pero eso es a cabo de que no tengamos la representación que necesitamos para luchar por nuestras familias, para que también tengan las mismas oportunidades o mejores oportunidades para vivir no solamente el sueño americano, pero el sueño californiano.
Sí. ¿Cuáles serían algunas de esas pólizas de nuevas leyes que tiene en mente que cree usted que pueda llevar a cabo ahora en el Senado? Y si nos puede explicar un poquito para los que van a estar viendo este video o que están viendo el video, la diferencia para la Asamblea, el turno es, o el término es de 2 años. ¿Cuál es la diferencia en el Senado?
Sí, la diferencia es que la Asamblea, que es donde estoy ahora, es la Cámara Baja y hay 80 representantes y se reeligen cada 2 años. Yo ya he tenido 2 términos, este es mi 4º año en la Asamblea y ahora me estoy postulando para el Senado porque la senadora Ana Caballero ya terminó su tiempo en el Senado y esa es la Cámara Alta donde puedes servir por 4 años. En totalidad solo se puede servir en la legislatura estatal, que es donde yo estoy, 12 años. Tendría la oportunidad, si los votantes del Senado del Distrito 14 me dan el honor de representarlos, de poder representarlos por 8 años. No te puedo oír.
Perdón. Ahora para el Senado, ¿cuáles son las áreas, qué comunidades son las que cubren en el distrito para el Senado?
Sí, para el Senado se incluyen los mismos condados que tengo hoy, que es el condado de Merced, casi todas las comunidades. No se incluye la comunidad del Delhi ni Hillmar en el Senado, pero se incluyen todas las otras comunidades del condado de Merced. Se incluye partes del condado de Madera, con las ciudades de Madera y Chowchilla, y luego se incorpora más del condado de Fresno. En este momento represento a todas las ciudades incorporadas y inincorporadas, las comunidades en el oeste del condado de Fresno, de Coalinga, Huron, Mendota, Firebaugh, San Joaquín, comunidades como Tranquility, y luego también se incluye las comunidades en el sureste y más de la ciudad de Fresno, como tenemos a Sanger, Parlier, Ridley, también Fowler, Selma y Orange Cove. Estas son las comunidades nuevas que no he representado anteriormente, pero sí he trabajado en los temas que les importan a estas comunidades, porque antes de yo postularme para el gobierno local, cuando estaba en la ciudad de Fresno, trabajé para un senador que representaba a todas esas comunidades. So, ya tengo mucho tiempo sabiendo cuáles son las necesidades que hay en estas comunidades rurales. Y también me creí en una comunidad rural, no muy diferente que Livingston, que es la ciudad de Lindsay en el condado de Tulare. Y yo he sabido personalmente también los problemas que hay en estas comunidades pequeñas.
La mayoría, y si no, es que más, pero la mayoría de las comunidades en el Valle Central siempre son áreas rurales, y las cuales siempre sufren un poquito, yo creo que, bueno, no un poquito, sino que bastante sobre apoyos, ayudas financieras para llevar a cabo arreglos de infraestructura en sus comunidades. Y precisamente ahorita creo que tenemos un ejemplo reciente sobre la comunidad de Dos Palos, donde una comunidad pequeña, una comunidad rural en el condado de Merced, el cual, pues, por diferentes razones, por X razones, pues, gastaron 2.2 millones de dólares en actividades que no eran aprobadas para eso. Entonces ahora tienen que buscar la forma de pagar ese dinero para atrás. Y a veces es lo que pasa porque tenemos las necesidades de infraestructura, pero a veces con nuestros fondos de impuestos de nuestras pequeñas comunidades no es suficiente, porque por los últimos 30, 40 años se estuvieron en el abandono. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que podemos hacer o qué es lo que usted puede hacer ahora en el Senado para seguir trabajando para ayudar a estas comunidades?
Esa es una muy buena pregunta. En mi tiempo en la legislatura, ya tengo 4 años, yo he traído más de 600 millones de dólares en inversiones para las comunidades rurales. Y la mayoría de estas inversiones han sido para las comunidades pequeñas que no han tenido la oportunidad de invertir en infraestructura o proyectos grandes, porque los presupuestos de las ciudades pequeñas son muy limitados. Sabemos que cuando estos pueblos están pequeños y la mayoría de las familias que viven allí y las personas que pagan taxes, los salarios son bajos, no se gasta igual el sales tax, que es parte de lo que se queda también al nivel local, porque no hay igual de servicios o partes donde pueden ir de compras en sus mismas comunidades. Y eso impacta a los presupuestos locales. Y yo he tratado de no solamente a través del presupuesto al nivel del estado de California, traer inversiones específicas para las comunidades, como sabemos en la comunidad de Franklin Beachwood, que por más de 20 años han estado luchando por un parque. Gracias a la comunidad, que me reuní con ellos y me dijeron, Esmeralda, necesitamos un parque aquí y no nos han dado ningún penny el condado. Yo les pude traer 3.5 millones para empezar la primer fase de ese parque. Vas a ver ese parque y está muy, muy bonito en el condado de Merced. También trabajamos como la ciudad de Merced, que necesitaba una estación de bomberos porque está creciendo la población, y les trajimos también como 4 millones de dólares para poder construir una estación de bomberos para que puedan crecer la comunidad con más viviendas, pero también para que tengan los servicios que se ocupan para asegurar que esa comunidad esté segura. Esos son ejemplos de las cosas que he podido traer, pero también otras cosas que estoy haciendo a través de las leyes y las pólizas que podemos pasar. Este año tengo una propuesta que ya vamos a votar la próxima semana en el plenado de la Asamblea, que crearía un fondo para las comunidades desventajadas que puedan aplicar a estos fondos, a este fondo, donde se les daría dineros para poder mejorar la infraestructura del agua. Sabemos que muchas de nuestras comunidades tienen agua contaminada, la infraestructura está muy vieja, pero ellos no tienen los millones de dólares que se tienen que tener para construir estos proyectos, y muchas de las veces tienen que acudir a pedirles a los residentes que paguen más en las tarifas de agua. Y sabemos y oímos muy claramente la comunidad de Dos Palos. Muchas de las personas que viven allí son de bajos ingresos o están retiradas y no tienen un sueldo que va a incrementar, que es el mismo sueldo porque están en el seguro social. Y es importante que tengamos esos tipos de fondos a nivel estatal para que estas familias no batallen más de lo que ya están batallando con los incrementos del costo de vida que están pasando en este momento. Y esperamos que esta propuesta de ley, que todas las comunidades pequeñas en mi distrito la puedan apoyar para que se crea y podemos traer estos fondos a estas comunidades locales. Pero también necesitamos que haya contabilidad en estos gobiernos locales, porque si no están haciendo algo legal, tienen que corregir lo que han hecho mal anteriormente para que esto no suceda y que pongan cosas para que protejan las inversiones y los dineros que se les otorga del nivel estatal. Y es para mí lo que es muy importante, que haya contabilidad, porque igual lo que nosotros hacemos con nuestros presupuestos en nuestras casas, también estamos mirando cada penny, cada dólar que estamos gastando. Al igual, estas comunidades tienen que hacer lo mismo.
Sí, dos preguntas y creo que tocó un tema muy importante sobre la contabilidad. Durante el tiempo de COVID, hubo muchos fondos estatales y federales, tanto para muchas comunidades. En el condado de Merced, muchos de esos fondos eran decididos y repartidos por el condado. Algunos de esos fondos tenían y le pusieron prioridades para hacer arreglos en edificios dentro de las oficinas del condado de Merced que no eran para tener acceso para el público. Entonces, hayan sido 3, 4, 5, 6 millones de dólares. Muchos alegan que esos 5, 6, 7 millones de dólares hubieran tenido mejor necesidad, mejor uso afuera en la comunidad, de diferentes formas. Entonces, creo que usted menciona un punto muy importante de la contabilidad, pero el problema es de que si la gente no se da cuenta o no se informa o no se entera, pues no puede alegar porque pues si no nos enteramos de algo, pues es imposible que reclamemos. Entonces, menciona el punto muy importante de la contabilidad. Ahora, moviendo hacia adelante, por ejemplo, aquí en el Valle Central, y vamos a hablar específicamente como tema de Livingston y Atwater, son dos ciudades que fueron contaminadas por empresas que estuvieron por muchos años en esta área, que se contaminó el agua por los químicos que desechaban el río, desechaban en sus propiedades y se fue filtrando a través de 20, 30 años al sistema de agua, que ahora usamos pozos para sacar esa agua, pero ahora nosotros como ciudad tenemos que limpiar esa agua. Y aunque esas empresas ayudaron o dieron un fondo de 11, 12 millones de dólares hace 15, 16 años, ahora con 11, 15, 10, 11 millones de dólares no se arregla más que un pozo o dos, si al caso, y cuando tenemos que tener un sistema de 8, 10 o 15 pozos para toda una comunidad de 15 o 20 mil habitantes. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos asegurarnos para que esas empresas o corporaciones no vengan a nuestras comunidades, dejen el daño y se vayan? Y ahora nosotros como residentes tenemos que sacar de nuestros bolsillos, como ahora surge en otras comunidades que no tienen el agua, o sí tienen el agua, pero no tienen el dinero para sacar esa agua y filtrarla. ¿Qué podemos hacer para que eso no vuelva a suceder y que esas empresas no lleguen a nuestras comunidades y luego se van dejando el daño atrás?
Sí, pues puedo decir que el estado de California ha avanzado en las últimas 2 décadas leyes para crear más protecciones y también contabilidad para que estas empresas, si dañan, puedan las comunidades acudir a recursos para arreglar los problemas que causan. Pero también es muy importante porque sabemos que no podemos ir 30, 40 años atrás, como dijiste, ya la comunidad o algunas comunidades han recibido, como la comunidad de Livingston, 16 millones de dólares, pero no aportan los proyectos que se ocupan, y por eso también mi propuesta de ley que tengo, que va a crear este fondo especial, es muy importante. Y también es importante que el nivel estatal consideremos añadir cuando haya los fondos. Ahorita el presupuesto está un poco no muy bien. También porque a nivel federal, esta administración de Trump nos ha quitado millones y millones de dólares que nosotros podríamos tener aquí en el estado. Y pues tenemos que hacer lo que podamos cuando haya los fondos para invertir en la infraestructura y ayudar a las comunidades que están desventajadas, como la comunidad de Livingston. Sabemos también la comunidad de Planada, hace unos años experimentó inundaciones, les pudimos ayudar con $20 millones. Y esas, pero ¿qué se ocupa? Se ocupa liderazgo que reconozca la importancia y que trabaje y se enfoque en estos temas. Y es lo que yo he hecho como legisladora de esta región, es aportar a las comunidades y escuchar cuáles son las necesidades para traer su voz a Sacramento y representarlos durante el presupuesto y también durante el año con diferentes propuestas de leyes.
Ok. Una última pregunta. Dos preguntas en uno. ¿Cuál es el mensaje para los votantes que todavía tienen su boleta en casa, ahí en la mesa de la cocina, en el comedor, todavía sin abrir, todavía sin revisar? ¿Cuál es el mensaje para ellos y por qué ahora, por ejemplo, en su carrera para el Senado hay 3 candidatos? ¿Por qué debemos de considerarla a usted para el Senado y que elijan y ya entreguen su boleta?
Pues primeramente, yo les pido su apoyo y su voto porque yo quiero continuar el trabajo que empecé hace 4 años y mi récord habla por sí mismo. Yo he traído inversiones a este Valle Central, que son inversiones históricas, más de $600 millones. Yo ayudé a reabrir el Hospital de Madera con una inversión de $57 millones, que sabemos que esa era una crisis por 2 años donde una comunidad y las comunidades alrededor fueron impactadas por no tener ese hospital. Y con el trabajo que hicimos juntas, la senadora y yo, fuimos exitosas en reabrir ese hospital. No hay un hospital que ha estado cerrado por más de 2 años y que fue reabierto ese hospital. Por eso me da mucho orgullo y quiero continuar a hacer ese tipo de trabajo. También el otro mensaje que mando a los votantes es que esta elección es la más importante de nuestro tiempo porque el costo de vida está en juego. Sabemos que la asequibilidad está en la boleta electoral. ¿Y qué me refiero? Que tenemos que elegir a legisladores que reconozcan que ese es el tema más importante para nuestras familias en este momento. Sabemos que el gas está muy alto. Sabemos que cuando vamos a comprar los huevos, la leche, las tortillas, todo ha subido demasiado y los sueldos permanecen igual o nomás han cambiado poquito. Necesitamos asegurar que nuestras familias tengan la oportunidad de ser exitosas en su comunidad, que puedan comprar su propia casa. Y es por eso que necesitamos elegir y no nos podemos quedar en casa, porque yo digo, si no votan y tienen el privilegio de votar, no se pueden quejar, porque el voto es nuestra voz. Y tenemos que luchar contra esta administración que ha atacado a nuestra comunidad de inmigrante. Y lo podemos hacer eligiendo a las personas que van a protegernos aquí en el estado de California. Y también tenemos la oportunidad de elegir el primer gobernador latino de nuestro tiempo, a Javier Becerra, a quien estoy también apoyando. Eso sería una elección muy histórica, pero no lo podemos hacer si no ejercemos nuestro voto.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias. Le agradezco el tiempo a su oficina para que pudiera estar aquí acompañándonos. Sabíamos que era algo complicado, anda en Sacramento trabajando. Pues muchas gracias y vamos a seguir trabajando adelante.
Gracias, José. Nos vemos.
Hasta la próxima. Adiós.
Adiós.
All right, muy bien, pues seguimos continuando. Ahora tenemos un invitado especial, déjeme traerlo a cámara. Aquí tenemos a Luis Lara, candidato para el condado de Merced, para supervisor, Distrito 3. Bienvenido, Luis, ¿cómo estás?
Gracias, gracias. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you, Jose, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Just to start out, let me introduce myself. My name is Luis Lara. I'm running for County Supervisor of Merced County, District 3. Just a little bit about myself here. I grew up in Atwater. I've lived here practically my whole life, 50 years. I lived, my parents grew pretty much, they're immigrants from Mexico. My grandparents and my parents came down, and we lived here just down on Winton Way in a 800 square foot home. We grew up poor. I pretty much slept on a living room floor with my brother for till I turned 18 and everything. And my parents worked at Davis Cannery, back a tomato plant here in Atwater. Now it's Teasdale. And they worked 25 years there, got laid off, and then worked in the fields just to make it work for us. You know, the best thing, I think they worked so hard that we were never on any type of aid, which, you know, now you think about it, it shows some dedication from my parents. Started my paper out there for Merced Sun Star when I was 9, and then got a job at a little market here, Arnyn Market, when I turned 15 and everything. And I think that's where, just growing up with my parents, how hard they work, I think that's where I got the motivation and to work hard. You know, I went to Atwater High, then I went to Merced College, and I started Merced College my junior year in high school.
Okay.
Merced College started letting us go, you know, they had the high school classes, and
Yes.
I was taking classes at Castle Air Force Base when it was open. So it was kind of cool to go in there, and you know, you had to come check in at where the guards were and everything, and take some classes. And that's where I started all my classes at Merced College. And then Stanislaus State, and from there I worked there at Stan State writing parking tickets, and then I got hired by the California Highway Patrol, which was a blessing to me, you know, because it was very hard to get into the Highway Patrol, and worked there, pretty much worked in the Bay Area 3 years. Came back home. Obviously, everybody comes back home to Atwater. It's your hometown and everything, and worked there. I worked with I'll tell you about the Highway Patrol. I worked in the Atwater office, came back home 3 years later. I promoted back in, I think, 2011 to sergeant in a leadership role, and stayed there for 1 year. Then I took over the hiring from Bakersfield to Modesto. I oversaw the investigation unit and the hiring, which was special to me because seeing a lot of people get hired was very, you know, it had a meaning to me, just because it's inspirational seeing people get good paying jobs around in this area and everything, and for the state. And then came back home, and I worked here in Merced until I retired just last month after 28 years.
Yes.
So I've truly enjoyed it. I've been part of the community. I've been, like, right now I serve on the Merced County Fair Board. I served on the May Day Fair Board out there in Los Banos. I'm right now on the Merced School Employee Federal Credit Union Board. That board is special to me because it's also about the people, right?
Yes.
You know, and other things I've done is Castle Atwater Kiwanis 4th of July committee for Atwater. I was also on the McSwain School Board for 6 years. So I've been part of the community, and I think I've been blessed for what I've had. I've been, you know, my job here at the Highway Patrol, I've done a lot of public affairs, and I think that's where I've met all my partnerships. That's where I meet all the good people I've worked with, and bad people, but they're all everybody's special to me, right? That's where you get your partnerships, and I think that's where I got all my partnerships, just local, federal, state, and it's been the best job in the world. And then, you know, after retiring, I still want to continue doing my community service. I still want to do stuff, so that's where I ended up, you know, looking at this position and continue my community service. I think it's an obligation, right? Even though it's not a volunteer position, but it's being part of the community. You have to do something to make change around here. And living here, reason I kind of picked running for supervisors is things aren't going the route we want to see them, right? And you can't just sit there and complain all day. You just want to be part of it. And that's where I just got running, you know, for supervisor, you know, and it's been a campaign for me for 10 months now, 10 long months. And Jose, you know how that is, right? You know, I mean, it's hard work, but
yes,
you have to put in the hard work if you want to get things done. And, you know, some of my priorities are like Castle Airport, right? I've been out there. I've been out there for a long time. They have, we have one of the longest runways, 11,802 feet, and it's very underutilized. There's a flight school out there that flies Cessnas, but when I mean underutilized, I'm talking about what the vision for Merced County should be. It should be bringing in revenue. That's one of the biggest runways, and I think the county, District 3 has dropped the ball on that. Castle, 2,000 acres. There's good things out there. I'm not saying they're bad. We have autonomous vehicles, we have other things, but there's 2,000 acres that also underutilized. There should be goals for the county. There should be, we should have projections, strategic plan. This is where we should have been 2 years. This is where we should have been 6, 8, 10. Those are what changes I want to see. A lot of people say, well, what do you want to do? Well, first you have to examine everything and see what we've done. You know what I mean? And those are my goals. Public safety, same thing. You know what I mean? And I mean, for us, the county's priority is to keep the residents of Merced County safe. And it is our job to keep county residents safe. And I mean public safety, fire departments, DA's office. And we're closing fire stations. We're trying to close fire stations. We're going backwards. Whoever thought we would be closing fire stations and leaving citizens, residents without a fire department? Never in my life did I think of that. I was a volunteer fireman, so I know how that works. And they're saying, well, we're doing it strategically. No, it's causing delays. People have medical aids. People have that could even be results to death, and that's what it's our job. We have back in 2014, 2015, we had 96 deputies working the road. Right now, Jose, we have 99 deputies working out there keeping us safe. So we've only increased in 10 years. We've only increased 3 deputies on the road. And you have to realize these deputies now these days, something goes, the county sees, oh, we have a homeless issue. We have some type of civil unrest, send deputies. So we have to take those deputies off the field and give them and send them out. So we have deputies have a lot more work,
Yes.
Infrastructure. You look at our roads now; they're not getting fixed. Until now, right? Election year, but those are the things that we have to plan strategically. And those are like, if people ask me, what are you going to do about roads? Well, we kind of have a plan. We communicate. We discuss things. It's involving the county residents' involvement where we should go, because now we just borrowed over $30 million from Measure B with interest to fix 41 miles of road now. How come we didn't do this back 6 years ago? Why didn't we do it strategically? There's a reason. We all know why it's getting done right now, but those are the things that we should have done. Those are the things we have to do strategically, and those are the things I want to do is just have a strategic plan and message to the residents of Merced County, to the residents of District 3. It's all about transparency.
Yes.
For me, it's about being accessible for people, showing up, being there, and being held accountable by the people, and holding people accountable to getting things done. Those are my things. And also, like, we are an agricultural area. One of my biggest things is water, being a good advocate to make sure that we have the infrastructure for water and we support our farmers. It's very important. My parents grew up, pretty much as farm workers. So to me, it's important because that is a lot of people here that have those types of jobs here.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, you covered like 3 of my questions already. So that's great. And just to be clear, no one has had the questions prior to now at all. So, you did great. So a couple more questions. And then understanding you just recently retired from CHP after 28 years. And even though you've been volunteering throughout Merced County, some say, well, Mr. Lara does not have the experience that someone in that seat for 12 years already has, and we're afraid that the county is not going to move forward as fast as we wanted it to. What do you have to say to that?
Jose, I get it. People can talk about experience and talk about, look, this is what we're working on, but I have 28 years in the workforce, 15 years in leadership, and I've been held accountable. There is no one, everybody in my line of work gets held accountable. If you don't do your job, you're called on and there's some type of actions taken. But I can tell you in my 28 years, I show results all the time. I know people, and when people talk about budget, well, you were not going to know budget. I've dealt with budgets. Here I've been on a fair board. I've been on a credit union board. Here on the credit union board, our operational budget's $32 million, and we have $900 million in assets, and we have to manage that money also. Is how much risk we're going to take to invest people's money. So when you kind of talk that, you have to understand that I sit on a committee where we do that. So when people talk about experience, we can talk all about it, but I always question, show me results.
Yes.
We'll say if I didn't see that right now, or if everything was fine and dandy for me, I would not be in this position. My reason is because it's pretty much, I think it's my obligation to do this, because if I don't do it, who will? And all we're going to do is talk. And that's where, I can handle. I'm ready to take on this mission.
All right. So one last question. It was more of a message. What is your message to the voter who's still waiting and have their ballots in the kitchen table?
I've been knocking on doors for months now and talking to the voters. And I say, have you voted? Or just recently when we got the ballots, and I always tell them, have you voted? And it's always no. And I tell them how important it is. Even though for, let's just say I talk to a voter who's not even in the district, it is important because there's a lot of people that sit on social media and complain about things, but it's an obligation for everybody to vote, to pick the right people for the office, to make their voice heard, because it is, when people want change, the only way to do this is to vote. It's don't complain about the roads, about Castle, if you're not going to vote, because that's part of an obligation of a citizen, of a resident out here, is do the right thing, vote, because it's important to get the right people in office that can lead.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias. Thank you, Louis. I know that you had to cancel some other things to be able to be here and really talk, provide that message to the people. Really appreciate it. Hasta la próxima. Thank you.
Gracias, Jose. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much. And we can do it next time after the election.
Of course.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Gracias. Okay, bye. All right. So let's see. Next we have, let me see, Mr. Javjit Singh Upal. Tenemos un candidato nuevo, Javjit Singh Upal. How you doing, Mr. Upal?
Good, Mr. Ron. How you doing, sir?
Good. I know that you were just canvassing. You had to come back home really quick, and I really appreciate the time, and I know how important it is to really have the voters hear from you, and ask you questions and things like that. But so that we can start, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, because you're running for this assembly district that runs from Delhi all the way down into Madera County, Fresno County, all the way down to Huron. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you grew up, and I don't know, who are you, and not necessarily the candidate?
Yeah. So I'm a diehard Raiders fan, which might be a turnoff from some folks. We've been talking about that a lot recently. You can see the pillow in the back of my sister's old room here. My name is Javjit Singh Upal. I'm 23 years old, from Livingston, California, born and raised here, went to the school system here, graduated high school into COVID, and then went to UC Merced to get my undergrad. My parents came here from Punjab in the mid-90s. I had an aunt that came here in the mid-80s, and she's really the one that really sacrificed her youth and her young adulthood to lay the foundation for our family to be able to get here and be raised here. I always tell people was raised in a very traditional Punjabi household, and I'm going to be I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off on this one. I'm just going to be straight up, because this is the way that the culture is. Growing up, the message is, if you're not a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, you're basically a fuck up. And I know that sounds harsh, but it sounds harsher in Punjabi. You know what I mean? And so that was the path when I got to UCM. I was on the pre-med route. After about 2 semesters of that, I knew it wasn't for me. The coursework, just looking ahead at what was to come. But at that time, COVID was happening. We had a public health crisis. And when you see the failure of government to respond to things like that, and you also see the financial conflicts of interest in that type of response, it opens your eyes to what else is going on behind the scenes. I switched my focus to public health, finished my degree in public health at UC Merced, got my master's from the University of Redlands in public policy and administration, which is right down the government line. And I got elected to city council the day after I got my master's. So my mind's been geared towards policy when I realized how broken our systems are from the local to the federal level. Had great people support me in Livingston. As you know, you're one of them. And here we are looking to go get after things at the state level.
I think you already kind of touched a little bit onto my next question. You know, what was it and how did you become interested in politics? You want to expand a little bit on that?
I got interested in politics on accident. My brother forwarded me some political content. He's like, hey, you got to check this out. I learned kind of out of the blue that the United States was funding and arming a genocide in Yemen. And it was just like, it just threw me off. Like, what do you mean? Thought it was fake, right? Like, it's just growing up, the United States, we're the biggest, most powerful, most respectable country in the world. We do things right. We're the moral authority, all that stuff. And then to see something like that and to see that it was verified, it really, it threw me off big time. And started researching more, started going down some rabbit holes, and that type of negligence and respect for humanity was not present just in our foreign affairs, but our domestic affairs, right? Our failure to provide our citizens healthcare when every other developed country can do it. Our failure to provide our citizens affordable groceries and utilities because our politicians are funded by the industries that are profiting from expensive items in those sectors. The corruption was rampant. I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize the influence of campaign contributions influencing who gets elected and the decisions that they make. And I feel like once you kind of go behind that veil, because it's covered, especially as a kid, right? Once you look behind it, you can't unsee that. And you can't unsee the impact that corruption and those decisions have in what's happening, not just in your community, but to your opportunity in life, to buy a house, to get a job, to have a stable living. And so once I looked behind the veil, I could never look back. And I knew that somehow, some way I had to get myself involved in this work to make a difference.
Yeah. So, you know, you've been through, you have been participating in a few different candidate forums. And one of the things that sometimes come up, you know, especially on social media after, you know, after the forums is like, well, some argue that you lack the experience in the political arena. You know, how can you respond to that? And because your two other candidates have been in the political world much longer than you have.
Right. I think, first of all, it's fair. I understand where people are coming from. When I tell people that I'm 23 years old, they think back to their 23-year-old self, or they have kids that are older than me. And they look at their kid and like, could I see my kid doing this? And usually the answer is no. So I get it. I ask people to look at my record first, right? From me growing up to what we've done in Livingston over the last year and a half, the way that I show up for this work, the time that I put in, the way that I stand on my values and on what's best for my community, even when that means asking tough questions, when that means getting in political knife fights, when that means doing things that even my family may not be happy with me saying or doing because it's in the best interest of my community. I have consistently stood on that throughout my time in politics, and I'm continuing to do that now. And another thing that I'd like to add is what I lack in experience, I make up for in integrity, and what the institutions that my opponents represent, what they have in experience, they could never make up in integrity, right? We are running against a broken system, a political machine that has completely sold out. That's something that not only my candidates, not only are they running with that machine, but they're not willing to say that. I think that means a lot, regardless of age. The last thing I want to say on this, and this really has been intriguing to me as I've dug into it a little bit. The ages of our founding fathers on July 4th, 1776. And I'm going to add context here that these men were not the greatest people in the world. They did some heinous stuff. But the age piece specifically, I'm going to flag here. James Monroe, 18 years old. Aaron Burr, 20 years old. Alexander Hamilton, 21 years old. James Madison, 25. These are folks that literally fought a revolution to birth the country that we have now. Some that are younger than me, right? Young people have always led the charge in stuff like this. We have less to lose and we can take more risk. And I am firmly energetic and dedicated to fighting back against this machine at this point in my life.
Well, thank you for adding that context. That is something that I didn't know about the age of the founding fathers of this country. Very interesting. I think you mentioned something very important in regards to, and this is something that I heard in the past, being in elected office for almost 6 years in the city of Livingston. And prior to this, I never held any appointed or elected office. I was new to council. I remember my first meeting, my first council meeting. The expectation is you wait 6 months and you learn the process. You learn to see who really runs things here, and you just follow what we say, kind of thing. And my first meeting in council, the council meeting was, I was sworn in, and I already had a list of things that I wanted to work on. I had things about the items on the agenda that I wasn't supposed to say anything about. You just listen and you follow what the elder on the council guides or directs you to do, and that's it. You just shut your mouth, right? And then later, probably within a month, I spoke to an elder in the community, a previous elected official, and he said, well, Mr. Moran, I noticed that you were pretty aggressive. I was like, was I supposed to not be aggressive? And I don't know. I don't think I was aggressive, but then later it's like, well, everything's supposed to really run smooth, and this is the expectation. But the expectation to me was not follow orders and just follow the system, And I always keep on hearing it's like, well, this is how we done it in the past. This is how we always done it, and it's been working just fine. Well, not necessarily, that's how we done it in the past means that it's legal or it should be done that way. But I really appreciate the work that you're doing and how you do it. And you're informed, and not only you're informed, but you're always trying to inform the community of what's really behind the scenes. So, experience, I appreciate that, but I appreciate the ethics, the passion that someone has rather than the experience, because, someone could be doing the job for 20 years, but they really have done nothing.
Right.
Versus someone just came on board and really is moving things forward. So
right.
Let me just get to this next question is throughout and I think you mentioned a little bit about it, but maybe you can expand a little bit more. Throughout the Valley, many have expressed appreciation about your campaign statements and how you seem to be very outspoken. Others have said that you are an extremist and that you want to change the world overnight. How can you respond to that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm always extremely grateful for those that resonate with our message and offer their support. I couldn't do it without them. I mean, that we need that in this world of politics. And, when people say you're an extremist, it's always interesting. Those sentiments usually come from people that are plugged into the machine. When I'm on the ground in Delhi, in Livingston, on the West Side, in Merced, when we're talking about money in politics, when we're talking about fighting against the machine, when we're talking about the influence of lobbyists and foreign lobbyists, including those that are based in Tel Aviv, in our politics, people love it. They love it. They love elected officials and candidates that are willing to rip the Band-Aid off and call this broken system for what it is. And what I would challenge those that call our views on taking money out of our election system, on guaranteeing our citizens healthcare and childcare, education, actually going after the corporations that are making our lives unaffordable. For those that call that extreme, I want you to consider the fact that we live in the only developed country on the entire planet that does not guarantee our citizens healthcare. I think that's extreme. We have families that have to choose between paying for groceries or medicine or utilities and not have enough food on the table. I think that's extreme. I think it's extreme that a whole generation and our entire middle class has been completely wiped out of the ability to afford a home. That is extreme. The extreme is the amount of wealth inequality that we have in our state and in our country, and regular people can barely afford to have a decent living. To me, that is extreme. And if you're not willing to say that, and if you're not willing to fight back against the corporate and special interests that are not only creating that system, but profiting off from it, you're the extremist and you are enabling the destruction of our middle class.
I think, I don't know. I think you guys, I don't know if you guys can see my questions, but you guys are touching on all the questions that I have, which is good, you know. And so you touched a little bit on donations and campaign, corporate funding. Can you tell us a little bit about how much you have gotten in donations, or how much you have in your campaign chest, you know, full of gold and precious diamonds and all of that, and very expensive stuff, in comparison to your two other compared to the two other people, and how much they have in donations that they're using for their campaigns.
Right.
So,
yeah.
just to give us an idea.
Sure. So I have raised a total of about $25,000 up to this point. I just filled out my latest reporting forms. I have to see what the exact number stands at, but it's around 25,000 as of today. I have one opponent that has in total put together a war chest of over $700,000. And I have another opponent that has in total put together a war chest of over $900,000. And mind you, they have access to more money from the respective machines that represent them, either of the two parties. The state Republican Party or the state Democratic Party at any point in time can drop thousands more into their campaigns at the snap of a finger, right? And so one thing that I really want people to consider, when I first was getting into the mindset of, hey, I might want to do this. Like, I might actually pull the trigger and run for assembly. And I'm having those conversations in the very beginning. Like, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? The first question that people who know how this game works and have some role within the system, whether or not they're an ethical or unethical actor, the first question that they ask me is, how much money can you raise? They didn't ask me what my values are. They didn't ask me what I'm going to fight for. They didn't ask me how many registered voters are in my district. The first question, people that know the system, that they ask me is, how much money can you raise? And the reason why is because our elections can be bought. It comes down to marketing and advertising. And as someone that has spent a career in marketing, you know how that stuff works. These people raise hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, which aren't coming from the working families that are struggling to afford to live in this valley, right? That's coming from big corporations. That's coming from insiders in Sacramento. That is coming from wealthy individuals who can afford to give, right? These people give them a war chest of funds to spend on mail that goes to your house, on YouTube ads, on social media ads, and essentially you get outgunned and outmarketed in the ballot, right? So people don't step up to run because they know they're going to get outspent by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Just this week, a few days ago, you had Thomas Massey, a Republican congressman in Kentucky, who was outspent by millions of dollars. President Trump, all the corrupt officials that support him, AIPAC, the rest of the Israel lobby, pumped in over $30 million in the most expensive House primary in the history of our country to take this man down. And they beat him, right? So this is how this game works. And any elected official or any candidate that is not willing to speak to the reality of the corruption in our election system, of the influence of money in politics, they're likely either taking money from the power brokers, they're afraid to fight them, or they're just ignorant, right? We're happy to stand our ground on that issue where we do. And I'm very proud to say that every single dollar that is flowed into our campaign, as little funds that those may be, it's all come from regular people, from people on the ground. And I'm very happy to fight with them.
So when it comes to donations, and I think you mentioned corporations and how special interest might affect the campaign and eventually whoever gets elected. In one of your previous forums, you mentioned PG&E. PG&E has, I believe, raised their rates 5 or 6 times within the last year or so. And maybe they're not afraid to donate to your campaign, maybe $5,900. What's your thoughts behind that, and how they might be supporting or donating to other candidates that are running against you? And the second part was, until recently or last week, one of the other candidates was not willing to participate in any forums, not necessarily debate, but in any forums for this district that you're running for.
Right.
What is your message?
Yeah. So let's start with PG&E, and then we'll get to the second piece of that. PG&E, they're so evil that it doesn't matter who I talk to, Democrat, Republican, older or younger. The second I say their name, I build common ground with whoever I'm speaking to. I mean, these people have completely priced out our residents, our farmers, and also our small business owners from being able to afford utilities. I just saw a report that 1 in 4 Americans had to choose between not buying groceries just to afford their utility bills. I mean, it is insane what these utility companies are doing. And the way that it works is, if you are someone like me who says we want to break their monopoly and we want to impeach the public officials that have allowed them to rip us off, they get behind candidates who either don't care that they're ripping us off or are not going to fight them back, right? So PG&E has donated $5,900. That is the max individual contribution for a state assembly race. They've donated $5,900 to one of my opponents, Mike Murphy. My other opponent has thousands of dollars in stock investments of PG&E. So he has a direct financial conflict of interest to want them to succeed, because if PG&E succeeds, his stock portfolio grows, right? So this is not only the influence of money in politics, but this is a way that PG&E can pull elected officials' ears to be able to say, hey, if you don't support us, if you don't play by our rules, we'll just go throw thousands of dollars into somebody else's campaign, right? They are funding Democrats. They are funding Republicans. They don't care where you come from. They are putting money into anybody and everybody that will protect their bottom line. So we want to remove their influence of being able to buy elections along with every other private corporation and special interest. We want to break their monopoly, give people access to local irrigation districts, and have publicly owned utilities that charge the rate of service, not the rate of excessive profit. Now, the second piece to what you said, having an opponent that refused to show up to forums until last week. I've said this publicly once already, but I really want to get the record straight on this so people are aware. It's not just Brian Pacheco refusing to show up to 2 forums. We had a debate scheduled at UC Merced on April 17th through their UC Merced Democratic Club. Brian Pacheco shows up for a meet and greet to this club the week before, and he tells their board that they should cancel this debate and potentially host one the next semester after the primary. So not only is there an effort to, not only is there declining to show up, but there's also an effort to shut down forums, right? And public forums in elections are job interviews. This is where we show up and we ask you to consider hiring us. If you can't show up to the interview, how can you expect to be hired, right? It's status quo politics. It's bullshit, and it is disrespectful to the voters to say, I don't care enough for you to actually be able to hear from me and hold me accountable. I have the entire Democratic establishment. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands more at the snap of a finger coming in from the party whenever they need me. We're going to buy this election. You can say what you want, right? That is unacceptable. at this point in time, considering the level of corruption that exists and the impact that it's having on working people, and for that man to have skipped 2 debates, it tells you just how much he wants to fight for you in Sacramento.
I know that your district is quite large, and really most of the communities are very rural. How many of those communities have you had a chance, an opportunity to visit, or to drop off some, yard signs, and on some really have an opportunity to talk to the people?
Right. I have visited every incorporated city with the exception of 2, San Joaquin and Coalinga, and we're going to be there this weekend to canvass a little bit and give folks information on where folks in those areas live, where they can go and vote. We have tried to make a dedicated effort to be on the ground in all areas of the district. Unfortunately, we don't have any paid staff. We have the most outstanding group of volunteers, I'd say, than any other campaign in the entire state. You know that very well, being someone that's contributed immensely to the campaign. We do our best to make it everywhere and anywhere. And we're going to continue to work in all parts of the district, from the west side of Fresno County to Delhi, small little town in Merced. Yeah.
And the last question, once again, people waiting until the very last minute, which is fine. But the problem is that not necessarily waiting until the last minute, but sometimes not voting at all. What is the message to the voter that is listening right now, that still has their ballot sitting on the kitchen table?
Yeah.
What is the message?
Well, first off, I get it. I get being frustrated and not wanting to vote when there are candidates, regardless of what party they come from, that have completely sold out to the special interests that are making our lives unaffordable. But something I want those folks to consider, especially the young people, and I'm going to throw out some data that I just received this morning. This is data from Merced County of the ballots that have been turned in thus far. Only 5% of ballots have come in. Young people in Merced County aged 18 to 34, they make up the largest voting block of the ballots that have been mailed out by far. Over 13,000 more than any other age group. 46,000 voters, 18 to 34. The next biggest block is people aged 35 to 49, right? So people under 50 on the younger side are the largest voting block in Merced County. Those 2 groups collectively have only put in about 1,600 to 1,700 votes. Voters that are aged 65 plus, they have put in over 3,400 votes. They have outvoted every age group combined underneath them, from 18 to 64. So we have a lot of young people who don't know if they're ever going to be able to afford a home, who can't find work, who are drowned in debt, who can't afford childcare, who are suffering from the corruption and the negligence of our elected officials that are not voting and giving themselves a chance to have people that might fight for them. And you have folks at the other end who have retired. Many of these people, not wealthy, but still have retired, have made it through. Some of them are very comfortable with the corruption that exists and continue to vote these same people in, who are showing up, making their voice heard, and electing the folks that make it to power. So if we want that generation of sellout politicians, of status quo politics to be gone, we have to show up and vote them out. At some point, you have to stand up and you have to fight. If you sit there, you don't cast your ballot, and you let things continue to happen without letting your voice be heard, things are going to continue to get worse. The status quo will persist. So if we want things to change, we have to show up and vote. You have a candidate in District 27 from Delhi to Fresno, if you live anywhere in that area, that has not sold out to big corporations, that has not sold out to special interests, that has been honest on the issue of Israel, that is willing to call out anyone and everyone that stands in our way of living a prosperous life. If you resonate with that, my name's Shafjit Singh Paul, and I'd love to earn your support.
All right. Well, there it is. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking time off your campaign and knocking on doors to be here. good luck. And there you go. If anybody has any questions, reach out to. Do you have a website?
Yes, sir. I have a website. It's my first name, Japjeet, JAPJEET, 4 CA.com. And I'll make sure to include that in the comments for this video and in all my other postings.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Next, we're gonna we have another guest, and let's see. We have Mr. Jaron Brandon for Senate. Welcome. I really appreciate you making the time to be here as well, and to participate in this effort to really get the message out, and not only get to know the candidate, who Jaron is, where he comes from, and just get to know a little bit about you. And I can probably share a little story in a bit about the first time that I met you, and I really didn't know who you were, but now it's the word is getting around, and sometimes they wish, well, some people wish that you were in this district. But can you tell us where you are, where you're at, who you are, and where you're at?
Absolutely, Ms. Mayor. Hey, thank you for having me on as well too. Thank you also for not telling the story that's going to get us both in tons of trouble. Just kidding. So my name is Jaron Brandon. I'm currently a county supervisor in Tuolumne County, so in the Yosemite area. I'm born and raised in the mountains, and the district that I'm running for is District 4. That is currently represented by Marie Alvarado Gill, who a lot of folks may know. She was the Democrat who switched parties and a lot of her votes into being a Republican. This is a huge district. It's arguably one of California's most rural districts in any legislative seat. And so it does cover portions of Livingston at the very south edge, Delhi, Oakhurst, goes right up to the edge of Fresno, but mostly it covers all of Stanislaus County. That is any city, any unincorporated community in Stanislaus County, all the way up to in the mountains from Truckee, so near Tahoe in the middle of the state, all the way down to Death Valley. And so in total, it is 13 different counties. And just a little bit about me, you know, I never actually thought that I'd be in office. There's a lot of reasons why I probably shouldn't have been. I do not have the right last name. I am not a rich person. I grew up in a very humble means family up here. My mom was a professional musician. She was a bar singer. She would go to local restaurants, sing on trains, entertain people for a living. And we actually lived in a trailer park together. So it was in a fifth wheel that we would fold down the basically dining room table, put the cushions down, and that would be mom's night. Living at a park where she would sing campfire songs for the folks coming through. My dad's been an independent business owner for 33 years. He just retired, kind of. He still loves the job, so he's actually helping the new guy, but selling guitars and guitar strings and musical accessories. Again, independent music stores, you're not going to get rich, but you meet a lot of great people. And we were really proud to serve the musical community. So both of my parents, they moved up to the mountains because they realized the people were friendly. The trees were beautiful. The air was clean. They immediately fell in love and ended up having me. So I'm born and raised from Tuolumne County in Columbia, in Jamestown, in areas of 3,000 person unincorporated towns. I graduated from Sonora High School. I was first in my family to go to college and get a college degree. I went to UC Merced also, and it's awesome to see that we have other Bobcats running in this election. And so I lived for 6 years down in Merced off of Dunn and then over in El Redondo. For a couple of years, I went and I pursued basically following what was a relationship and job opportunities out of college. I worked at a software company, and I was burnt out. I wanted to do something that I believed in. You know, my dad every day got to help people that came in. Funny guy, he would tell them and bring up Amazon or whatever online to try and get them the best deal. He would give away so much free knowledge and little supplies to kids that came in or a musician that needed help at absolutely no charge. And his whole thing was, if you are good to people, they will come back when they need something, and then we'll get that sale tomorrow. And my mom dedicated her life to not making a ton of money, but being basically doing what she loved, which was bringing joy to people's lives. And I guess I looked at that when I was down in the Bay, and as many young people from our communities do, I came back home And I found that, I didn't have a plan at that time, but it's what I was missing. My mom had actually passed away by that time. She passed away when I was a sophomore in college. She had 6 years battling with cancer. I got to see what that was like navigating the healthcare system, dealing with kind of hospice care in the end. She was a state park worker, thank God. Towards the end, so she had COBRA. She had coverage. But that was a really challenging moment. I'm proud, though, that she got to see me go from what was a high school student trying to figure things out to eventually student body president of my university, an intern. I worked on Adam Gray's campaign. I worked on Ana Caballero for state senate way back, as well as a number of local elections, Noah Lohr for mayor pro tem. And I just immediately got the bug. It was actually my friend Daniel Martinez who handed me a voter reg clipboard. And he said, you obviously like to talk. Would you like to go help me today and register some voters? And I had never taken that step to go be part of the solution before. And I fell in love with it. Ever since, I've just been raising my hand. So I came back home. I ran for the board of supervisors because the more I read, and I identify with a lot of what Japjit mentioned there, the more I realized how deep this system here had failed us. Our political leaders had failed us. We had folks who had been in office for a very long time. They talked about all the accomplishments. If you scratched the surface of that with your fingernail, you would find out most of the time the opposite was true. My community had tons of drugs in it. I saw a meth lab get busted across the street from me in Jamestown, a block from an elementary school. We had the worst roads in the state. We had no housing growth. I mean, people my age, there was no place for us to be able to get an affordable rental, much less home ownership, and 15 other issues that were just spiraling out of control. And so I'm a Democrat. I have grown up and run for and represented a community that is 2-to-1 Republican. They have since put me in office, not just because they dislike the guy that I ran against, but because I run on actually getting things done. And I'm really terrified about the future of our country, where everybody is splitting apart, where neighbors somehow think that they don't have anything in common because they might have different parties, and this political system that we don't often have folks who are really focused on the implementation and making sure that it's not just the stuff we want to do, but it's done well. And rural communities like mine, like Livingston, like all the communities of Senate District 4, we're the ones where it doesn't work. We're the ones where it breaks down. We have to deal with all of the expenses and the regulations and the mandates. We often can't access all of the help, and we don't always have representatives in there that are doing what I think representatives do, and you do every day. You fight with courage, you serve with integrity, you go make friends where you can to be able to get stuff accomplished, and ultimately we're holding a torch that we have temporarily for the office, only for the purpose of trying to get something done that actually helps people's lives. And some people get too enamored with their name behind a brass plaque. They like the fancy title. Supervisor Brandon's always sounded weird to me. I'm just Jaron. I'm the person that when you call my office, I come out, I check out what I can do. I talk to the staff, I build community coalitions, and I try to get things done. And I want to take that to the Senate because I think we need that leadership. I think our local leaders need that help. That when we have issues, we need somebody reliable, who has that background, who has been elected to the district, who has had to talk to people in the grocery store line and say, hey, this is how I voted. How did it affect your life? And answer those types of questions. That's a level of accountability you can't just get by buying your way into a race or having the right last name. So that's a little bit about me. And I'll throw one fun one in too. I'm a really good rollerblader, Jose. You probably didn't know that about me yet.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe we can bring in a couple of skate parks in your district once you're.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I spent a lot of good time at a skate park.
Yeah, awesome. You covered a lot of the questions that I had for you. So let me. You mentioned about El Dorado and how a lot of the voters there are registered Republican 2-to-1. And even then, they voted for you for a reason.
In Tuolumne.
Oh, in Tuolumne, yes.
Yeah.
And so, the first time that I met you, probably, and then again, prior to that, you mentioned that you worked for different people's campaigns throughout the years. Maybe I did see you somewhere, but I really don't remember. But the time that I remember, it was when you came to visit the Merced Central Committee, which I'm part of. And you told us a little bit about who you are in 3 minutes, really, who you are and what you're doing and what the goal was. And I learned that you were running for the Senate. But in my mind, one of the first things, and I did ask you that that night, and then later on, I shared that why I was thinking this way. And one of the question was somewhere along the lines, well, you could, you've done very well in Tuolumne, where people know you, but now you have Stanislaus County, part of Merced County, part of Madera County, part of this other many counties that almost touch the, down south to the desert area. How can you convince those voters? You mentioned your name. I mean, sometimes I even have a hard time mentioning, saying your name, Jaren. It took me a little practice.
It's all first names too.
Yes, and then so how can we get those voters to look at your name and say, 80% of the time when they look at the ballot, they don't know any of the candidates. They might have heard them on TV, or they might have seen some kind of sign with their name on it, but they really don't know that person. And how can we what is the message that we can get to the Latino community, which is 50 to 60% in most counties, to look at your name, and if they have not gotten a chance to talk to you, to get to know who you are, to consider voting for you, and not for somebody else whose name might sound Latino, and who might be, I mean, your two other candidates are women. And sometimes even just being, people vote for other candidates just because they're women. And sometimes candidates vote for somebody because their name, sounds Latino or Hispanic, and some just don't vote. I mean, how can we get those people your message of why they should vote for Jaren Brandon, who might not have the millions and millions and millions of dollars, or like you said before, you don't have. And then again, I really don't know what that means, not having the right name. Maybe a good marketing name. Maybe we should just change your name to Juan. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it was a thing up here in the mountains, and I think there's similar stuff in the valley, but it's we would call it the Good Old Boys Network, right? And the Good Old Boys would have a name that would be so many generations back, and this isn't to say that, I mean, it's really awesome to have communities, families and communities that stay for 5-6 generations in that. But the challenge of it was you would have somebody who, without knowing who they were, or their values, or talking to them, or what their policies are going to be, do they have a successful record of accomplishments? Have they had to deal with, hard votes and challenges? That people would support them because they were one of those names. And that was something that I ran against. I want to make sure that everybody has a voice in their elections process, that we have a voice in government. I don't care whether somebody is one of the more prominent business owners or developers in town. Yesterday I was talking to a lady, her name's Hilja. She's a Dutch immigrant that came through. She's a World War II survivor. We were discussing the pole that was placed in her yard by PG&E and what the color coding meant. She calls me, I pick up. My job is to be able to serve and to be able to help. That's a mentality you don't get, I think, when somebody is effectively elected because they had one of those good old boy type names in that. So, how do we get people to care in the first place about politics? Right now, truth be told, a lot of people feel very frustrated with every party. I'm a Democrat. It does not mean that I think everything the Democratic Party has done is great. My values align with what Democrats care about. But as a rural Democrat, I'm kind of grumpy. All that said, it's more important we're actually electing people that are courageous and want to fight for you, and actually want to make sure that they have an understanding of the policy. And there's a saying that it's, show me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are, right? What I'm going to ask is, if people have questions, I need help letting them know that you can call me, you can message me, you can see what I've done. I've got 6 years of votes, and the community that put me in place is better off for those years, and not in terms of just I'm so great, but I think listening and making good decisions that have fixed potholes. and the roads are better. The fire services are better. The public safety and law enforcement is better. That drug house that I saw get shut down and taken down, I believe that was probably 2008. There were a number that had cropped up in my area since then, opening or openly operating within the community. All of those drug houses have been shut down. The homeless encampments that surrounded those communities, those homeless encampments have been removed. And there's a pathway out for folks that want to get help with substance use, with mental health, with housing assistance. All to say is people can reach out, but we have to re-engage in the election. And I hope that they will see the other folks who are supporting my campaign, who I've had the opportunity to have these long conversations with me. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. Apologies. Okay. I think my Wi-Fi cut out for a sec. I'm proud to have the support, for example, of Senator Ana Caballero, Congressman at. Hello, Jose, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Let me go ahead. I'm going to cut your image for a little bit. And let's see.
Okay.
Maybe to lower the. I'm not sure I can do that. Okay, let's give it a try again.
Right. Well, I'll say I'm proud to have the support of folks like Senator Ana Caballero, Assemblymember Rhodesia Ransom, to have the support of yourself and other local officials within our district, Supervisor Chance Condit. A lot of these questions are complicated. People have a distrust of this system because a lot of people have used it and lied to them. I always try to be honest, courageous, and have integrity. I don't try to go and please everybody with every answer that I've ever had. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. And immediately before I ran for office and felt compelled to step up, I sold guitar strings. I don't come in knowing all the answers as the expert. I come in to be the most effective representative that I can, which is to actually get the stuff funded and built and done and over the line. So that would be the thing. Besides that, we are working very hard to travel the entire district. This is 7 hours to drive from top to bottom. And so I've been spending a ton of time in the car, a ton of time on the car phone, talking to voters, knocking doors with North Valley Labor Federation. As you know, we've been putting up signs in the community. We've been attending all of the debates. We had some really great televised ones. We've been posting on social media. We're doing everything that we can. But we do need folks to realize that this is a really important election. Yes. And I think I don't want to get too much into your last question, which I suspect may be coming up, but
go ahead.
We have a special power with the vote. And if we don't use it, then we don't get our voice heard. And it's natural to feel like, well, I don't think it matters in the presidential race or whoever's going to win in the governor's race. And I'll say it does matter. But for races like mine, for local races too, that impact your life probably more than almost any of those other positions, your one vote could really be the one that actually elects somebody. Mm-hmm. Adam Gray, for a congressional district, was elected by, I believe, 70 votes in the last election in a ballot curing contest. 70 votes, right? That is 70 people. That's one neighborhood that determined who was going to be our representative in Congress. And now more than ever, we need good leaders, but good leaders can't get elected if we don't have folks that show up and vote. You can't counter the money in politics without participating on the other side to make sure that we are organizing and we are putting in our time, and ultimately we're casting our ballots. So that's my hope. There are 3 candidates in this race. I am running to represent all the folks in the middle that want to see something done, who don't think maybe Democrats or Republicans have a monopoly on all good ideas. Mm-hmm. I know who I am, and I also try to find compromise in everything except matters of principle, because ultimately I'm not running to represent Democrats in Senate District 4. I'm running to represent everybody in Senate District 4. I just happen to be a rural Democrat.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something very important, and yes, you kind of answered the last question, but it is very important, and that is why we're doing this, to really give people an opportunity to know the candidate, who they are, at least a little bit in a different way, and not necessarily, have to find a weird way to select a name at the ballot. And it's interesting how you mentioned that every vote it counts. It does, because just like it has happened in past elections, I have run for office 3 different times, and this last time I normally the elections run. The last one was until the election day. I think it was November 4th, and my election was not announced or finalized until December 4th, which is like a month later, because the votes are still counting. It was very close, and
Yeah.
I ended up winning that election by 9 votes. 9 votes.
Wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
it's crazy too with, you know, anybody who's on Facebook or Instagram or whatnot and sees the political conversations, they're passionate. People are upset. They have ideas. I mean, there's an energy there. It's not always fun to have to deal with that. It's a challenge to be online. You got to have pretty thick skin to be in politics. But I'll just say there's a lot of people shouting, talking, discussing, and yet more than half of the people probably in this election, as much as we are seeing with the No Kings rally, as much as we are seeing with what's at stake for the governor's race, for the representatives in our own community that need that support, all the issues that we're talking about, less than half will probably turn in their ballots. And that is something that's really concerning. Now, I think we should have a marketplace of ideas. We should have both parties and independents bringing forward, you know, here's my experience, here's who I am, and here's what I want to do for you. And I think that's great. We should have that competition.
Yes.
If the reason one party wins versus the other is because more people just turned out for them, that to me is not the best way. We need to make sure that everybody is encouraged to vote. And I'll say this too, there's probably people that are going to watch this that are not going to vote for me, who are Republicans or who are independents. I will throw out, Republicans have been a key part of helping to elect me up in Tuolumne County. There's no mathematical way I couldn't have won without folks who crossed over and said, you know, the person is sometimes more important than the party. But cast your ballot. You don't have to vote for me. But if you don't vote whatsoever, you are not participating in this. You can't go online and be the most passionate advocate with all the opinions, with all the things you want to see done, and then not do the one basic responsibility that we all have as citizens. And it's not to try and make you feel guilty. You should feel good about this, because when that candidate wins, you know that you were a part of something, of actually getting some real change in there. You know, in this race in particular, I think some of the defining things about my candidacy, one, I have the lived experience, but also the professional experience, I think, to be a good representative for this district. It's true, and I think you hit on it too. An impolite way of saying it is, I know that I look kind of Republican. I come from a mountain area that is not diverse. It's a pretty much white community, right? I mean, that's all. Going to UC Merced was eye-opening for me. I think when you come from a small town, as they say, everybody's born ignorant, but it's a choice to stay ignorant. Going to UC Merced, I met people of so many different backgrounds from across the state. I got involved in a community that was different than mine, where it was not the ethnic and racial kind of majority there. It was very much people from all different backgrounds. That was so incredible to me, and it was eye-opening. And bringing that back up and home, it was, I think, helped with what my mom and my dad gave me, to be able to empathize and find common ground with folks. I'm asking for the privilege to be able to serve you, because I'm also much more like, I think, any other person in the district. You know, I drive a used car. I've lost my rental before. I've been kicked out and not known where I'm going to go to. I've struggled to buy a house. I've been on wait lists for public housing for 3 years in the past. You know, I wasn't hungry as a kid or anything like that, but we certainly didn't have money, go on a lot of vacations, or be able to put money away for a college fund. I'm still paying off my college debt. When I ran for the board, I took a pay cut, and I've done this full time because my constituents deserve my full attention. And I do so and make it work. I finally bought a house 50-50 with my buddy. I rent 4 rooms in it so that I can pay for my fire insurance and my mortgage, right? That's the type of energy that I bring. Beyond having that, being the only born and raised local candidate to the district, you know, starting in my own backyard to try and fix my community first, and now just asking to expand that community that I'm fighting for. I'm also the only locally elected official in the race. And as you know, there is a lot of policy and background, especially as a freshman legislator. You can get stuff done, but you have to make sure you know what you're trying to do and how to do it. And you surround yourself with good people, and you know the leaders of the district. I'm the only locally elected candidate in this race, and I've been doing this full time for 6 years. So I have this interesting spot of being 34, a much younger candidate. I would be one of the youngest candidates in the state legislature. And yet I bring to bear for a candidate in a race like this, a substantial amount of public policy experience at the local level in a rural jurisdiction that doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars extra to kind of pad over problems. We have to figure it out. I know the problems firsthand because we're the ones that get hit twice as hard by it. That's the experience we need in Sacramento: authenticity and effectiveness.
Well, Jaren, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. I know this was almost very last minute, with organized within the last few days, but I think it was important for to give our voters in your district and everybody else's district to get to know just a little bit more about not necessarily just what the candidates are proposing, but who they are, where they come from, and really to see that they're just like us. You guys are just like every other individual that is sitting at home watching this right now. So I really appreciate the time, and until next time.
Thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate it, and I'll tell you, I should stop saying if, but when we win in the primary, when we win in November, what I'm going to be focused on is I want people to see that these policies are helping to reduce their insurance, their healthcare, their food costs, that we're making sure our groundwater is clean, we're getting investments. Some people say, why does it matter? Billions of dollars is potentially at stake, depending on who we send to Sacramento to go fight for those interests there. So it's a pleasure, and I greatly appreciate you creating this opportunity to talk with voters and all of your support as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hasta la próxima.
Bye-bye.
Till next time. Bye-bye. All right. Well, wow, it's very interesting. A lot of different points of view, muchas diferentes opiniones, conversaciones. Ahora vamos a invitar a nuestro próximo invitado, al señor Miguel Alejandre, de la ciudad de Los Baños, el cual es candidato para supervisor distrito 5, ¿correcto? Alejandro, a Miguel, sí. Alejandro, buenos días, buenas tardes, depende el horario cuando estén mirando este video. ¿Cómo estás? How you doing?
Bien, todo bien. ¿Y usted?
Muy bien. Pues, adelante.
Sorry, go for it.
Pues bienvenido a esta charla, a esta plática. Welcome to this conversation, to this chat. Just one of the main purposes is just to give people an opportunity to get to know who you are. Like I said before, quién eres, no nomás como el candidato, pero quién eres tú como persona. Bienvenido.
So I'll say it in English because I say it better in English than Spanish. But so yeah, my parents are from Mexico, Jalisco, Michoacan. They came in the 80s during the amnesty. I was born in 94, born and raised in Fireball. Through my parents came because of agriculture, the Central Valley. After that, raised by strict parents, learning firsthand what the realities were. Of course, I grew up with an entrepreneur dad. Learned from him. I've dealt through, I've gone through the stigma of a Mexican, first generation Mexican here in the Valley. Through the grace of God, I've been able to move to Los Banos, where now I'm in Merced County 7 years ago. Started my own business. I've slept in my office for the first couple of years, and starting that because of COVID. I started my business right before COVID hit, which was a tough time for our small businesses, and that's where I got pretty much introduced to the political field. I know I fast forward a lot from when I was young to now, but just to give an idea of why I started doing this and why I want to make change here, because I've seen firsthand what the people go through, because I go door to door, not because of campaign, but because of my work. I do handyman work, HVAC work. I see the reality of a lot of different families who can't even pay their bills or do whatever they can. And I handle over 700 accounts with my gym business. And I'm always having to balance my budgets there. I'm always having to talk to them on missed payments or this and that, or what we're investing, or how are we going to grow, how can we scale. And there's a lot that I go through. Like I said, I've said plenty of times in many forums, I'm not the best speaker, but I noticed, and one thing I've noticed today was like, I'm not a speaker. I'm a listener. I get caught up in my words. I get caught up in what I want to say, and I feel like I always know what I want to say in my head, but I always lose my train of thought. I think
No.
my life so far has been an example of how motivated and how hungry I am and what I'm able to achieve. Um, a lot of people don't know what goes to the background. A lot of people don't know on the outside perspective what I do, what I have, and what I've accomplished. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm pretty sure anyone looking from the outside in, says that my opponent is clearly going to win the election, because of the fraud, because of the money he's raised, and he's raised. I'm not sure, I haven't checked, but I know it's over 80,000. And me, I'm not taking any donations. I'm not taking donations from the people I choose to represent in a small local community where most of them are struggling. And
Mhm.
I've spent maybe just a little over $4,000.
Mhm.
So it's nothing exponential, but
Mhm.
yes.
So, well, thank you for sharing that. I think you already touched on a couple of items that I wanted to talk about. You mentioned that you're a business owner. You mentioned HVAC, and then you also mentioned the gym. Um, having all of those responsibilities of running multiple businesses. I think you own multiple gyms and
Mhm.
and so on. So, why would you want to take the responsibility and the risk of uh, running for supervisor, um, and making the district, your district, a priority alongside your multiple businesses?
So that's where, again, people misinterpret my expertise on what I can do and how I can streamline processes. So the way I have 5 locations, and I said that before, and the way the gyms work, they're able to work in a manner where they don't take too much of my time. I have my employee who goes and cleans up. It's a locked business. Only members have access to get in. I have 24-hour cameras. I was able to adapt to the times, especially when I have 2 big commercial gym businesses right next door to me, um, and been doing well. I've been surviving. I was able to achieve that, as well as opening another business and adapting to what I needed to adapt to in order to survive. I've done that, and I've been a product of that, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished alongside with my wife and alongside the help of my family. Um, and why I got into this prior is because I seen the misrepresentation that's going around. Of course, the incumbent, I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he's a great person. He's there for his family. He's there for his friends. He's there for the farmers because he's more ag based. Um, but that's where it stops. What about everyone else? What about the business owners here? What about South Los Palos, Midway, the Y, and unincorporated communities that a supervisor directly oversees besides Los Palos and Los Baños? There's a I just walked around the whole town yesterday of South Los Palos, just talking to a lot of community members and seeing what their issues were. And when people always ask me, "All right, Miguel, how are you gonna handle the 5 locations? How are you gonna handle your HVAC business? How are you gonna handle your family? You have 3 kids. They're 2 years old. All 3 of them are 2 and under." And the way I think about it, like I've done everything else, I found a way to make stuff happen. I plan on hiring employees now for my HVAC business. The gyms themselves, they run themselves. The Pilates studios, my wife handles that, and I could take a step back, and I feel confident that I can take a step back. And I've even, I've even dabbled at the opinion of of giving away my salary if elected. I'm proud to say that I'll be able to do that if I need to. I'm not sure what it entails exactly. I'm not sure how much time it's going to take away, but I know it's going to take away a lot of my time. But I feel very, very confident that I'd be able to handle and juggle everything. Because if you look at every successful person in the world, you'll realize that person's not handling every single thing and then still doing all this. Like Elon Musk, for example, you think he's in charge of everything, but you think he's hands on deck with every single thing. There has to be a strategic management plan to handle everything that you have.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I mean, it's not everybody that participates or that ever gets elected into an elected position is born or comes with that experience. Back in 2020, I ran for elected office. It was the first time that I was elected to the city council, and I came with no experience. And I've been doing that for 6 years. And I think, yes, of course, everybody has a learning curve, but it just depends how much effort you really want to put into it. You know, in my time in the city council, I've been a council member and I've also been the mayor for 2 terms. And as I was talking to different people in the community, one time somebody told me, it's like, you know what? It's like I never noticed something that is different. In the past, we had, because we had mayors and council people come and go, but now I just realized that there's a difference and between mayors and council members. And I asked, so like, what do you mean? Well, in your position as a mayor, there is some might consider a lazy mayor, and what some might consider a hardworking mayor. So, um, but it's all a learning curve, and that is some of the comments that I seen and that I heard. Um, what are you willing to do once elected to the supervisor seat? That's going to mean that you're going to have to invest a lot of time in learning about the different departments and everything else that comes along with the seats. What does your family think about this?
If I had a penny for every time I heard about, oh, it's going to be a learning curve and experience, I'd probably have, you know what I mean? Um, so pretty much, Jabji and Luis touched on this, and they said it. They said it in a wild manner. Even Jabji said it in a manner I didn't think about either. I always said like you can teach all this. This all can be learned. Like an experience in this policy, budgeting, government, all that stuff could be taught. But can morals, values, hard work, discipline be taught as easily to someone who's hungry? And that's how I definitely view myself as someone who's starving for change, starving to help out the community. Um, I'm not worried about the learning part. As much as people say it's gonna be a learning curve, I'm not worried about it so much. I know what I'm capable of learning and doing. I've learned so much already. Um, Public speaking, I definitely am. I'm gonna hire someone for that. Um, but other than that, I'm not too worried about it. My wife knows; she fully supports me with it. Um, she's seen what I've tried built and what I have built and done for our family so far.
Mhm.
So it's the learning curve is going to be there, but I'm trying to see. I remember how Jabji said it. He said, uh, "Do you remember how he said it?" He said, what someone lacks in experience makes up with I
Make
forgot
it
the
up
word.
with honesty and
Yeah,
integrity.
exactly. Yeah. So it's like that's my edge, and that's what
Yes.
that I'll take. Because that's literally how I see it. I'm not worried about the experience or this and that. I
Yes.
know I can make connections. I know I can network. I know I can meet people. That's how I've been able to build what I built on the private
Yes.
life and my private. Yeah.
Business. Yes. I seen you very active in the community, especially in Los Baños and Dos Palos. What are some of the other things that you do in the community? Uh, I seen you attending meetings and really keeping the community informed. Can you share a little bit more of some of the other activities? Do you participate in nonprofits or um, other
Okay.
events?
So, one of the very first times I ever started getting into it, um, I met you a long time ago, and you probably don't remember at the Central Valley Round Table in Don Pepes and Fireball. That was way before I even decided I was going to run for anything. And then I became a Rotarian at one point. And then I joined the Elks. I became a Knights of Columbus. I usher at my Catholic church here in Los Banos. Um, I volunteered for food drives. Various amount of ways, but one of the ways have enjoyed giving back that again I struggle with even wanting to mention right now because then like the Catholic in me comes out and says don't like I don't want to point out what I do because then am I doing it for the genuosity of it or is it if that's a word or or because I want the attention of it. So I will say this without having to speak too much about it. Um, there's a lot of things I have probably done without much people knowing that would have probably helped my campaign so much more, but I choose to remain anonymous for that reason, because
Yes.
I don't want to have to do it for the campaign. And I dabble and I beat myself up in the head like, Miguel, if you let them announce that it was you or doing this, it's like it could definitely help. But
Mhm.
no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it for those reasons, because then I feel like God's looking down on me and be like, te estás aprovechando de la situación.
Yes. No, no, todo está muy bien y creo que es importante a veces ah, que la comunidad sepa que siempre has sido una persona que ha estado involucrado, que siempre ha estado ayudando, that you've always been in the community, always been very helpful. Um, and I appreciate that you don't, that you decide to not use everything that you have done in the community to really uh, benefit your campaign. La gente va a votar por ti, por quien te conoce, por quien mira que eres una persona honesta, trabajadora, con ética, y que vas a aprender muy rápido y que vas a hacer lo mejor por tu comunidad. And I appreciate that, and people are going to be able to see that you're ethical, that you're transparent, and that everything that you're doing it, because you really want to be able to help your community and not help special interests. And once you get elected, once you're there, then you will continue working hard to make sure that you're there every day for your community and the people in your district, and to
Yeah.
make sure that the things that are happening around your district don't continue to happen, and that you always continue to be reachable. And I
Mhm.
and I heard you say this before, that even if you don't get elected this time, that you will still continue to work hard for your community regardless, and not necessarily having that title is going to keep you away from continuing to support your community.
Yeah, at the last city council meeting, I went up and talked to them, saying that there's 13 days since it was 13 days to the elections during that day when I went to go talk. And I told them that if elected, great, I could help the community. If not elected, great, I'll still be able to help the community. I brought up ideas like we need a technical school here in Los Banos for HVAC, for electricians, for plumbers, for carpentry. That's something I would love to bring to the community, whether if it's in the private sector or in the public,
Mhm.
or if there could be a like how Luis had mentioned, there's a aviation school over there for like Cessnas. Like that would be great to bring back to Los Banos. There used to be a helicopter school, which I just learned about yesterday here in Los Banos. So stuff like that with the quality of life that brings people and make people happy here. I know I will continue investing because that's the entrepreneur mindset I bring in. I guess the business mindset I bring in, opportunities to help the community, what they can do with that expands the quality of life here on the west side, and
Yeah.
also the all of Merced County. Because I know if District 1, 2, 3, and 4 are also thriving, that means there's more revenue for the whole county, more that can
Exactly.
be redistributed everywhere. So I pray for our continued success on the west side and the continued success on the east side.
I appreciate that you bring up the point. It's something that not very many really see it. When one district is successful, then the whole county is successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the mindset that you are bringing forward with this, and not necessarily, everybody. Yes, they are there to serve primarily their district, but at the end of the day, the whole county should work together to support each other.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that mentality, that you're bringing to this. One last question, and I think it's important, especially nosotros los latinos, nos esperamos hasta último momento para llenar nuestra boleta. Nuestra boleta todavía está ahí sentada en el comedor, en la cocina, en el petril. Ah, ¿Y qué podemos hacer para invitar a esas personas que todavía están esperando hasta el último momento para que se decidan de llenar su boleta y entregarla antes del 2 de junio?
¿Sabes qué? El Yabji me robó lo que quería decir, porque ella tenía listo los números de los porcentajes
Ok.
que había más, vi el otro día que 5% de todo el condado ha votado y la mayoría, 3,407 people have voted that are 65 and up, que todos, si combinas todos los otros grupos abajo de 65 años, todavía no alcanzan los números de votos de los que tienen más de 65 años. Y eso es algo que veo que no se puede estar quejando la comunidad, la mayoría de los latinos y todos, si no van y usan su voz, si no van a votar. Eso es verdad lo que veo. Y por los que me tienen en Facebook, en las páginas comunidades de la comunidad, ves muchísima gente que va y se queja y llora y todo, que no están haciendo cambios y todo esto, y pues están votando. Y por eso, como ha dicho muchas veces y dijiste tú, que si te gusta cómo está tu comunidad, tu estado, tu gobierno federal, sí, sigue votando como está. Si no, pues sigue votando por algo nuevo. Pero la cosa es que no van a votar, y es lo que tiene que cambiar, y era una meta desde el principio, informar a las personas. The informational post I would do on Facebook, esto es lo que está pasando, a ver si quieren ir a votar o no, más para que sepan más.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I guess, the final message and really the message of this chat, this conversation has been to really make sure that we encourage, that we motivate, to get people to fill up the ballot and then drop it in the mail. And it's very important. It's very important to make sure that if you're going to put it in the mail, you send it in before May 26th. And this year, the post office are doing something different. Normally in the past, if the election was on June 2nd, you can still drop it off on June 2nd and they would stamp it with June 2nd, and then it will go to the voting center and then they will count it. Now the Postal Service has something different to where if you drop it off on June 2nd, it might not get postmarked or stamped the same day. More than likely, it's going to be the next day or the following day, which is going to be, and then it's going to go to the voting center and it's going to be invalid because it got there late. It was not stamped on before June 2nd. And something just came out on the paper about Merced County not validating thousands and thousands of votes that because they got there late. Okay, so it is very important to make sure that if you're going to drop it off in the mail, drop it off on May 26th, May 27th, the latest. And then if you wait, you can still drop it off at the official mailboxes at the city, in City Hall, or at the voting center in Merced County. And if you have any questions, make sure you call. Asegúrese de votar, asegúrese de enviar su boleta antes del 26 de mayo. La razón es porque antes regularmente usted podía dejar su boleta, pues supongamos el 2 de junio, y le ponían la fecha del 2 de junio en el correo. Ahora es diferente. El correo tiene un sistema diferente donde si usted la deja el 2 de junio, no le van a poner la fecha del 2 de junio, sino la van a registrar hasta el siguiente día o 2 días después. Y después se va al centro de votaciones donde cuentan las boletas y ya no va a ser contada. Entonces es muy importante, si usted se va a esperar hasta el 2 de junio, puede entregarla, puede ir a votar, puede entregarla su boleta en los buzones oficiales para votaciones, y si no, enviarla antes del 26 de junio. Perdón, sí, el 26 de mayo, para que llegue antes del 2 de junio. Así que, pues muchas gracias por haber participado en esta pequeña charla, a todos los participantes. Thank you very much to all the participants for participating in this chat. And make sure you vote. Asegúrese de votar. Hasta la próxima. Saludos.